Today I want to talk about 5 things I learned living in Las Vegas that are unique or unexpected. Some of these are small things just with living conditions, other quirks to living in Nevada. Now, if you don't know who I am, the long story short is I have a travel YouTube channel where for a couple years I traveled around the USA and I just made videos and made content around my experiences going all over the US. And then I decided to settle down and spend a long time in a home base, and I made my home base Las Vegas. So with that out of the way, let's get into some fun quirks I found living in Las Vegas and Nevada for the first time for extended periods. I mean, it's different if you're just visiting for a couple days in a hotel. That's a different experience. But one thing is, when you're living here, I discovered that at least in certain units, when I turn on the water in the summer, even the cold tap water, like the right swing at my sink or in the bathroom, the water comes out hot. And that's because the water reserves are outside, and it gets up to 110, 115 degrees here in the summers, which is really hot. So it probably heats up the water. So will you have this same problem if you go to an expensive hotel resort like Encore? Probably not. They probably have chilled water inside because you're paying for that experience. But if you are living like a normal life in the suburbs of Las Vegas or outside of the Strip, be prepared for something like that to occur. Second is, surprise, surprise, the temperatures here. Now the winters here are actually quite nice for that reason. It doesn't really get that hot. It never snows. It can get a little chilly, but which is surprising, but not that chilly. Chilly to the point where you may have to throw on a very thin sweater on some days where it's just a bit more windy. But the summers here, as I've been told, get very, very hot, and I didn't really know for sure until I tried it out, and lo and behold, they are really hot. So to give you an example about how hot the summers are, sometimes in the middle of the day I just have to go somewhere, so I will get in my car and the car is just steaming hot. And then even if you crank up the AC, it still takes like a few minutes to really get going. And then by that time, what do you think? It's going to be super hot, and then it's just going to be so hot that it's just hard to deal with. So there are times where the whole back of my back was sweating, and my back was just sweating in so much that it started to stain the car seat a bit behind me. So now I have to look into how can I remove the sweat smell on my car seat just from like the couple minutes going from my air-conditioned house to somewhere else. And even in fact, the air conditioning in my house isn't really enough sometimes, just because I live in like a more affordable unit, so we have 2 basically AC units going, just like little boxes. Okay, so what else? Number 3, there is a solid local population here. I think at one point there was it was just all tourists, but there's a solid local population here, and there's great activities that the locals can do. So that's really one thing I want to emphasize. Not just that there's locals here, but that there's fun activities, and you can live a good life as a local here. So first off, we get discounts to some stuff. So for example, if you go onto various places on the Strip, parking in the parking garages is free for like the first 1 to 2 to 3 hours, depending on the hotel, for many places. On top of that, locals get free access to certain pools in resorts on the weekdays. So there's small perks like that. Not a ton that I've heard of that really makes it exceptionally worth it, but I think those small things add up. I think another thing is just there's a decent amount to do. There's a really strong pickleball community here, and they built so many courts. They even have a court inside the Palace Hotel, and it's like 12 courts, and there's all sorts of various different things going on at all times. In those Palace Hotel courts, they offer free weekly lessons on Saturday mornings, and then there's all sorts of other courts for pickleball in various parks around the place. And there's this beautiful park which actually has a lake. It's probably man-made, but there's a beautiful lake with a bit of trees and foliage and stuff around this lake, and it's just beautiful to walk around. I actually played Pokemon Go around that lake once. And then of course there's the food, and then there's stuff to do. There's arcades here, there's a country bar here, there's all sorts of like fun activities, shooting ranges, if you want to like learn how to shoot a gun. There's arcades, there's an adult playground where it's kind of like I guess like obstacle courses for adults. So there's a lot to do here. There's even hiking, and I think that goes underrated oftentimes when people think of Las Vegas. Okay, number fourth thing I learned here is that it is pretty affordable to live here as a local, at least compared to California or some parts of Florida and New York City, and then obviously any other really significant major cities like Seattle or San Francisco or LA. In fact, you know, it's probably half the cost of LA in terms of a comparable unit. Now, some people I tell that to, they don't believe it, but those are people who usually don't live in Las Vegas. They don't know much about it. In fact, all of them don't know much about it other than their experience visiting as a tourist. And that's different. That's staying on the Strip when it's expensive, when it's, you know, peak summer, or, you know, just it's a very touristy vibe. So they think, oh man, Las Vegas isn't cheap. The drinks are really expensive. The hotels are expensive. I don't know how you can live there. And that's because they're only thinking about living on the Strip. But, you know, if you live in the like suburbs or somewhere adjacent to the Strip, it's much more affordable. So I'm currently paying about $1,400 to $1,500 for rent in the places I've stayed at, and then some people pay more, some people pay less, but you can get around pretty affordably, especially if you're willing to go like farther away from the Strip. I'm actually paying a premium because I wanted my own private unit, and I wanted something close to the Strip. So from where I am to the Strip, I can get there within 15 minutes or less on almost all days, unless it's a major holiday like July 4th, or there's a major event going on like the Super Bowl. But as you can see, compared to like California and a bunch of other stuff, it's just a way more affordable. I think you could probably get by with paying like $1,200 in rent if you aren't as like, you know, prima donna as me, and you wanted to live like closer to the Strip where all the action is. In fact, a lot of people live in Summerlin, which is kind of like a very nice